Alright everyone, Flateman Fitness here from Holistic Songwriting. Welcome to this week's live Q&A. Live! Smooth, right? Almost as if I practiced it. How's it going, folks? Welcome to this week's live Q&A. I've already said that, which is the point where you realize that I'm not really actually planning this or anything or practicing. So yeah, it's been 2 weeks off. It's been 2 exciting weeks for sure. I went to the States with my fiance and we had a blast. We really had so much fun. Hey, Martin and Moreno, good to see you guys. So yeah, we had 2 really great weeks. We started off in Las Vegas, and by the way, I'm just talking until the chat fills up, just to let you know what's been happening in the meantime. We started in Las Vegas for one night, went to Grand Canyon, then went to, what's it called, Bryce Canyon, back to Las Vegas, Zion Canyon, tried to get to Yosemite, which didn't work, obviously because of all the wildfires, and then we went to San Francisco, where we stayed for the last couple of nights, and it was really, man, we really had a blast. It was really cool. I think actually it was probably both of our favorite vacation that we've ever taken together for sure, and maybe ever. So we really had a blast. It was such a great time. This has been my 5th time in the States in the last 10 years, and yeah, man, it was really great. It was great going with Joanna as well. I really wanted to show her the national parks because I think they're just absolutely stunning. My favorite part, probably both of our favorite part, was doing the Narrows in Zion National Park. Like, if you ever get the chance to go out to Zion National Park, man, that's like the coolest hike you could ever do, because for like 70% of it, you're actually walking through water that goes like knee high or sometimes waist high, and it's just an experience, you know. I've never done anything like that, and I really like hiking, and so does Joanna, and it was just beautiful, man. It was just so great. So, man, we had a blast. Moreno says, I hope one day I can go to Europe and explore. Yeah, dude, totally. I mean, Europe has some really nice spots as well. I recommend like doing a tour from north to south, or, you know, the other way around. Maybe starting in Amsterdam, because Amsterdam International is a pretty big airport. Schiphol. That's what it's called, and then like going Amsterdam, go over to Berlin, and then down to Italy. I'm guessing would probably be like a nice tour. Like, I have a couple of friends who did motorcycle tours here. Like, they took their bikes and you know, just did a couple of week trip, and yeah, you can see a lot for sure. And you could also see Freiburg, which is my favorite city here in Europe, and Utrecht, which is another one of my favorites. So those two, I think, like, they're smaller cities. I mean, I like smaller cities. You know, you should know that coming here. Like, that's always going to go into my what I like. Obviously, is my experiences. Anyways, man, if you can't tell, I'm very jet lagged still. We arrived yesterday morning. Very early morning, and yeah, my head is still spinning in circles, basically. I still haven't completely recovered from the flight. It was a very long flight, and it was a very wobbly kind of flight for hours. Everyone was just trying to hold on to the insides of their guts. I think we all got, like, a lot of people got sick on the plane. Some women started crying, like grown adult women started crying. It was a horrible trip back. I'm slowly recovering now, and I always have my problems with like I can't go on roller coasters and stuff like that, because I get sick super quickly. Even Joanna, who loves that stuff, she almost got sick as well. I did get sick. Man, it was just awful. And imagine that for a 9-hour trip. So that was very bad. And yeah, so I'm still recovering from that, and at the same time, the jet lag, man, it's a lot of stuff. And today I had to do a lot of work for Holistic Songwriting already. And it's tough, man. But I'm trying to get back in there, and hopefully I can answer some of your questions today. So if this is your first time on live Q&A, I've just posted something on the main channel here. In case you have no idea, this live Q&A takes place every single week at Monday, 9 a.m. PST. And yeah, so you get to ask any question, and I will answer it, basically. So we've got some questions coming in finally, so let's get to those before I, you know, lose myself in my own stories here from my vacation, which is obviously not really interesting to anyone. So let's see. I think I heard a frog in your studio, says Itachi. Did you? What could that have been? I don't know. I hope it was. Hope it wasn't anything. Maybe I don't know. Man, just horrible. I don't know what's going on today. Would you ever start a label? Says Itachi. No, it's not for me. Like holistic songwriting is about all the business I can handle, and it is a lot of stuff. Don't get me wrong. It's a lot of stuff to handle. And if you're a businessman and you understand the responsibilities that come with starting a label, then yes, that might be a good idea, something to do. Personally, I wouldn't ever, because it has a lot of responsibilities that come with it. It can potentially get quite pricey as well, depending on which route you want to go down. You should know what you're getting yourself into before you start, is what I'm saying really here, kind of. For me, it would just be too much red tape and that kind of stuff, and that's really the part I hate about music anyways. So starting a label and making that essentially a full-time job seems like a really bad idea to me personally. And I considered it in the beginning, like, I think a lot of musicians come to that point where they're like, maybe they'll send out their stuff to a couple of labels, and none of the labels want it. Maybe it's not, just doesn't fit into their program at the moment, and then saying like, oh, I'm gonna just start my own label so I can do whatever I want, So I understand a couple of people come to it from that direction. I don't think it's a very good idea still to found a label at that point out of necessity. I think you should only start a label if you're really passionate about it. As with anything in life, you only should do things that you're really passionate about, that you really want to pursue, that you're not going to abandon after a couple of weeks if it doesn't work out just perfectly. All right. Why are you streaming on this channel, says Chono Noyan. So Chono, I'm doing it on this channel because on the main channel, I just want to have all the professional videos. This is just me more, talking, like it's more of a conversation with you guys. And this is kind of a service to my subscribers. I could do it on the main channel. It's just, I do these every week, and having a video like this every single week on the main channel is just going to really pull down my subscriber and viewer numbers, which is, I did that in the beginning, like about a year ago. I did it on the other channel, and it just really didn't do my channel very well, because they're all the same, right? Like if you go to this channel and you see, oh, there's 37 of these live Q&As, you're probably not going to watch any one of them, because it all feels like the same, even though I'm answering different questions every single one of them. I understand that it's not as appealing as looking through a list on the main channel and seeing like, oh, this is about feedback, cool, that's what I'm interested in, let's watch that one. This one is about Bruno Mars, cool, let's watch that one. That makes more sense than saying live Q&A, here's questions and answers, and you never know what you're going to get, So that's why not a lot of people are watching these, and I have like 200, 300 views on all of these videos here, and that would really pull down my main channel, so that's why I'm moving it over on this channel. So, but if you're interested in asking me questions, then totally subscribe, man, because every single week, as I said, I'm answering your questions. Jordan says, Fleetemann, I love your material, thank you very much. I've bought the book, but would love to support your future work. Would you consider getting a Patreon? I've thought about it. I actually started a Patreon account, but didn't go through with it because I realized I don't really have that much to give through a Patreon account. Like, it would really all be welfare for me, I am kind of at my maximum capacity in terms of putting out content right now. And I don't know what else I could do for a Patreon account. Maybe you guys have some ideas how, like for some tires for Patreon. But like I could do like a $1 kind of thing, or like, hey, I could also do a PayPal button that just says like donate some money or something like that, or do like a monthly donation, but it would be donations, because I don't think I can produce any more content than I already do. So that's kind of a struggle for me. At the same time, I'm thinking like, there's still my courses. Like if you want to support me, you can just buy a course, So that's kind of where I'm standing right now. But, I don't know. Like I have considered getting Patreon, and I think it's a really great system. I like the idea of it, and since so much of my work now is YouTube and not my courses anymore, like my focus surely is YouTube at the moment. It kind of starts to make sense a little bit more now. So I don't know. What do you guys think? Is there anything that you would like me to do through Patreon? I don't know. Updates, or I don't know. Doing these live Q&As maybe just for my Patreons? I don't know. Something like that. James Revolution. Oh no, sorry. It's James Relovution. Relovution. Yeah. Your channel is one of the best music analysis channels. Great work, man. Thanks very much, James Relovution. Your channel name, maybe not the best channel name I've ever seen. I'm sorry, man. But thank you very much, man. It really means a lot. Beatmaster says, how many GIFs were made with your hand motions from the co-writing video? I don't know. I haven't seen any. Moreno says, hey, I've done your 7-day hit song program for the third time. Should I continue to perfect this process, or should I go back to creating from an abstract place? I mean, it's all down to you, man. Oh, so this is a different question, right? It's all up to you, dude. I mean, you decide what you want to do, obviously. Whatever inspires you, whatever you makes you happy, that's what you should be doing. If you feel like the 7-day hit song program is giving you some good results, and you want to continue down that line, then totally do. If you feel like, hey, I kind of get this now, and I want to see how it works together with my personal approach, maybe try to combine the two, or just go back to whatever you felt comfortable with from the very beginning. It's really up to you. Whatever works for you works. If you're producing great songs, then keep going that way. Keep going that route. He also asks, I have the Akai XR20. Is this good for drum writing, programming drums? Let me check it out. Akai XR20. Is that a MIDI keyboard or is that a drum computer? Oh, okay. So it's a drum machine. Basically, does that come with samples within it, or is it just a controller? I think it's just a controller, right? No repeat. Let's see. All right, so it's both, right? So it comes with sound itself, but it can also be used as a controller. Is that right, Moreno? Could you elaborate on that a little bit? But if it's basically just a MIDI controller, then those kind of things with the pads are great for programming drums. For the sounds, I can't tell you because I don't have it, and I have no idea whether it's good or not because I haven't played with it yet. But usually those things are all right. And if you have some samples that you like, if you're like, oh, hey, I dig what's on here, if the samples fit your personal taste, then great. There's nothing I can tell you. If you're going for a really professional, like live drum sound, something that you want to sound as if a live drummer actually played it, then that might be a different kind of question. Then I would say go maybe with like one of the bigger sampler packs and just use it as a controller, and don't use the samples on the thing itself, because typically on those things that they're made more for electronic drums or for more sampley sounding drums. It sounds more electronical or something like that, or sampled. And you kind of don't want that if you want live drums. You want to have a lot of different velocities, and you want it to seem very real. You want the imperfections as well in there. And for that, I recommend stuff like Studio Drummer or Addictive Drums, or even something maybe like Steven Slate Drums for rock, which is more sampled sounding, but it still can have some pretty realistic results depending on how you play with it. All right. Jordan says, shoot, open up a donation button. Seriously, I don't need any more copies of the book, but I absolutely love your content. All right. Cool, man. Cool. Maybe I should really think about that. Martin says, have you learned more about songwriting through life experience or the other way around? It's a really good question. So have I learned more about songwriting through life, or have I learned more about life through songwriting? I think it's a two-way street for me, for sure. And especially when I was a teenager, I learned a lot about songwriting, about life through songwriting, because I used songwriting as a platform for myself to digest information that I'd gotten in life. It was really a way to go through things that I'd been through, relationships and all the other mumbo jumbo that you go through as a teenager, failed relationships and difficult love triangles and I don't know, and stupid other guys at school that bully you and that kind of thing. So for me, songwriting was really a way to deal with all of that and to think about that in a new way and to channel that into something positive. And that's kind of how it helped me during my teenage years Today, like, it's definitely changed in the last 10 years, though. Like, right now, I feel like life is teaching me more about songwriting than the other way around. Like, I'm learning, like, I'm constantly, if I'm learning something new, and I try to read try to read basically every single day, and every time I read, I'm thinking like, oh, cool, this is the same way in songwriting, and I never saw it in that way, and it kind of like opens up, a new point of view for me on songwriting, and sometimes that really allows for some quite interesting ideas, like, and some interesting inspirations to happen. And so yeah, it's kind of like that, I think. Since I'm really interested in learning a lot of different things at this point, and songwriting is kind of just what I do at this point a little bit. I feel like I'm learning a lot more about songwriting from other disciplines. But I mean, that's also because, I mean, I've been writing for such a long time that is so me. Like, that's a part of me. It doesn't feel like a separate part from me anymore, in that I could learn something from. You know, it's just something like, it's a part of me, and everything I learn in life that just moves towards that. It moves towards me. You know, so that's kind of how it feels. It's a difficult question to answer, but hopefully that gives you an idea of how it works, right now for me at least. Beatmaster says, a higher Patreon tier could be you looking at a song the Patreons send in. It's not a bad idea. I mean, I have a system on my website where people can send in songs to get reviews for them, but maybe that's an idea to do something like that with Patreons. I just don't want to. The thing I'm afraid of, which is why the feedback that I was talking about is not officially on my website. You have to kind of ask for it, and then I'll send you a link for that. I'm just kind of afraid of being swamped with way too many songs to give feedback to. That's what I'm afraid of, because that would kind of really mess up my day-to-day job, really. Like, I only have so much time to work on holistic songwriting every single day, and something like that, because I really want to put a lot of time into every piece of feedback that I give. And usually when I get a song, it turns into like a 45-minute video for a 2.5-minute song. That's very, very normal for me, you know, especially for the first song. If someone sends me 4 songs, the first one is typically 45 minutes, and the next couple ones are like 20, 15, 10, 10, or something like that. Because like the first one is always where you have like the biggest insights into like, oh, okay, so I'm hearing a couple of things that are going wrong here. And the second one and third one, they're like, okay, so remember all the stuff that I said from the previous video? That goes for this one as well, plus this, and this. So, but if I had to do, like if I had 50 Patreons that needed feedback every single week from me, or every single month, that would mean 50 hours of me doing feedback every month, which is considerable amount of time. Jesus Christ. Sorry guys, again, still jet lagged. So could get a little bit tricky. Again, it's a huge time investment. Something like that, if you have as many subscribers as I do, that could really quickly turn into something that is not scalable, and that's what I'm afraid of, you know? So what I'm always trying to do, and this is good advice for anyone out there, I think, is whatever you're trying to do, in the beginning that's not so important, but as soon as you're getting some traction, as soon as your fan numbers are increasing and you can see your growth growing, then what you want to do is you want to really focus on doing stuff that is scalable. That's what I did with holistic songwriting in the beginning. Like, I never put out too many things. I don't have too many courses that are really dependent on how much time I put into them. Like, my courses are done. Like, whenever I sell a course, I don't have to do anything for those courses anymore. It's a passive income. I don't have to sit there and make a video every single time someone wants to buy one of my courses, you know? So at a certain point as a musician and as a businessman in general, I think you should invest more time into creating content that is evergreen, that you don't have to work towards anymore in the future. And so things like that, where it's a monthly commitment, where every single month I would have to do something like that, that doesn't have an end, like it's an open-ended process, and it's only going to get more and more and more with more Patreons following me, that is something that I'm a little bit worried about. And so that's why I don't think I'm going to do that. I could maybe do like a competition where from all the people that are in this price range, or whatever, the higher Patreon tier, from all the ones that are in there, I maybe could do 5 or 10 every month or something like that. Maybe that would be something I could do. but then it would feel shitty if you're the person who hasn't gotten like their song reviewed in 2 months. You know, I that would feel bad as a subscriber, and I'm not really comfortable with that as well. Anyways, but I'm very welcome to ideas, and I don't want to like kind of reflect your ideas and say like, oh, that's all not good. But I have thought about this kind of stuff, and that's kind of what's holding me back from doing Patreon. I don't know. If you have any ideas, please, I'm very open to ideas. All right, Moreno says the hit song is on point, man. Lol. Yes, I can do both. What drum machine is good for drum writing then? I think this is the drum machine that's good for drum writing, man. It's your brain. It's what you do. It's your taste. I think you can write great drums with any drum machine, especially because you can still go into Logic or whatever DAW you're using and still alter the velocities and still move, you know, the notes around. So it doesn't really matter what you use. You know, I've seen people program drums with their keyboard, you know, and typing it in like that. I've seen people, and this was me for a very long time. I didn't have a MIDI keyboard for a very long time, so I just clicked and drew everything by hand, and it's still fine if you know what a drum set's supposed to sound like. That totally works. So it doesn't really matter what drum machine you use, like the way you type it into your computer. Doesn't really matter as long as you know what it's supposed to sound like and you keep working on it until it sounds that way. And as long as you have the right samples, and the ones that I mentioned are pretty good. They're kind of like the golden standard in the music industry. So that's again Addictive Drums, Studio Drummer, Steven Slate Drums, Easy Drummer. There's BDF. I have BDF 2, but that's a little bit older version. Big fucking drums. I mean, there's so many. Like, there's so many to pick from. I'm sure you're gonna find some that are good for you, depending on what kind of genre you're into. And for electronic or hip-hop kind of drums, I would recommend going with samples and actually still doing the click and drag. That's what I do for most of my hip-hop tracks, or R&B or anything that's usually pop music. If I don't want a live drum set, if I want something that sounds a little bit sampled, I'll usually just pull them in from my loop manager, Apple Loop Manager in Logic. So I'm using a more sample approach for that kind of stuff. Yeah, and for that I really like, what are they called? Theproducerschoice.com. Theproducerschoice.com. I don't have any affiliation with these guys, but I really like their stuff. So I'm I've bought a lot of their samples and I really like them. Okay. Arced550 says, how long did it take for you to completely live off music, or could you do that right away? No, that certainly wasn't an overnight thing. I mean, I've been a musician since I was 15 years old, and I think the first time I made money with music was, let me think about that. I must have been 22, something like that. So it took me 7 years just to get my first paycheck, and it wasn't much. It was maybe like $700 or something like that. So nothing that I could make a living off of. And then once I turned maybe 24, 25, something like that, that's when I had a more regular income, even though since it's the music industry, it was still very fluctuating. And 1 month it would be $7,000, and the next month it would be $500. That was very, very realistic, because sometimes you have these big projects that just take a lot of time, and then you get a big payout for that, and then the next month you have 2 or 3 smaller projects or no projects at all, and that can be fine if you know that next month you're going to have another big project, but sometimes you're like not so sure. Sometimes you're not sure if anyone's going to call you in the next 2 months. You're never sure if you're going to make that money. So that was a quite stressful time, which is partly why I started Holistic Songwriting, and now I have this base, more of a base level that I can live off of, and the music thing is a little bit more relaxed because of that, and I can just I can take more of I can take on the projects that I love to do instead of having to take on certain projects. That's because I need the money, and I think that's good for me personally, because it makes it more fun for me, and also I think it makes my products better because I work on the stuff that I'm actually good at and not on things that I never was good at in the first place. So I'm just the wrong producer for those kind of things. So, it kind of depends on where you are in your life right now, obviously. I have a friend, she just signed with a publisher, and she told me that most people at that publisher, it takes them about 3 years before they make a good income with. So until they get like I think it was 3,000 euros or something, which is about $3,500 or something like US dollars. So it took them about 3 years to get to that point, and then they could live off of that comfortably. But that was a lot, meaning that means writing a lot of songs for that publisher until you have enough songs to get you that basic income. But so if you're good enough to sign with a publisher, then it might take you another 3 or 3.5 years to get to that point where you actually can make a living off of it. All right. Would you be up for co-writing/co-producing an EP together? Says James Rilavushin. Very sorry that I dissed your name, man. I think I'm growing. It's growing on me. Would you be up for co-writing, co-producing an EP together? I'm gonna say no, just because again it's the scaling thing. If I say yes, then everyone's gonna chime in, and everyone wants a piece of me. So obviously the answer is gonna be no, especially if you ask me in public. The answer is always gonna be no. That doesn't mean I'm totally closed off for anything like that. I'm still a musician, and I still love making music, and if it's something I like, it's still very well possible. It's just that through a platform like this, I'm always going to say no. And it obviously depends on the music. As I just said, I can now choose which projects I take on, and if the project doesn't really interest me, if it's not for me or something like that, then it's just going to be a no. A way to do it, though, would be to say, to maybe use the feedback service on my website. And if, in case you want to know how to find that, just go on Google and type in personalized songwriting feedback. If you type in that, you're going to find it on my website. Through that, you can purchase a feedback session with me, or I'm making a video for that essentially. And if you, at the end of that, tell me, hey, would you like to work on this together, or would you like to write on stuff like this together, then maybe I'll consider it if I like the music, if it's really up my alley. And that those are two different things. Like, I might really like the music, it's just not my thing. It's just not what I want to do for me personally right now. Because what I want to do personally is very, very niche right now. So it's going to be difficult to hit that niche for you, I'm guessing. There might come a project along, every 10 years or so that I'm just super excited by, that I really would like to work on. It's probably not going to happen. It is possible though. So I'm saying, like, if there was a way, this would probably be how. Jordan says, on Patreon, charge enough so that you can do it. Yeah, I also don't want to make it too expensive, though. I don't want to be that dick that's just charges way too much for their stuff, Because right now it's $70 on the website. It's $70 to get feedback for one of your songs, and I think that's a fair price, because it's really, really very, very low. It really is. I know it's worth much more, but I also feel like, it's the very minimum I can do, because this is including tax and everything, so it's a very, very low price. But I also want to give people the opportunity that don't have that much money to send in their songs, and that's why it is that low. That's kind of why I'm setting it at that price. And again, it's not scalable. What if there's, amongst my 200,000 subscribers right now, there's 100 that have a lot of cash, and they don't care if it's $200, and that will be 100 reviews to do every single month, and it's just too much. Then that's all I would be doing all day. And a decision I've made last year for myself was, I'm gonna stop doing the personalized stuff, and I'm gonna go really big on the YouTube channel, because that's a way to reach more people, to help more people eventually. And so what I want to do with YouTube is, I really want to produce really, really in-depth content. I really want to give you guys just the best that I can really offer through my YouTube channel, and really, really drive that home. I really want to drive home a couple of points through the YouTube channel, instead of saying, I'm just going to give you the tip of the iceberg through YouTube, and then you have to buy my courses or do personalized coaching with me in order to really get the full deal. And that's not how I want to handle it. I really want to just help as many people as possible, and I feel like personalized feedback is maybe not the way to do that. I used to have a channel here. I used to have a series on the other channel, Feedback Friday, where I would publicly give feedback on songs. So people could send in songs, and I would do my whole feedback bit basically live. And my thinking was like, a lot of people are going to learn from that. They're going to listen to the song and be like, oh, that's cool. You know, he's doing this and that wrong. I wonder what Friedemann's going to say. And then I say like, oh, this and this and this. And they're like, oh yeah, cool. Those things I heard as well. Maybe this one is new to me. Why didn't he mention this? Maybe he didn't care about it as much. And like kind of figuring out together what's not working with the song. That I thought was a really cool idea. Unfortunately, it really didn't take off. I got like, 200 views for a video or something like that. Like it just really wasn't enough to keep it going. So yeah, it's something I've been struggling with, but man, keep it going. Like if you have some ideas, let me know. I'm sure there is a way to do it. Martin says, I'm probably going to have some jazz, blues, rock guitar lessons. Can you recommend me a good e-guitar, which is not too expensive? What do you think of Fender Squier Bullet Strat HSS? I think for your first guitar, just pick a guitar that you like, that looks cool. And Fender is always a good brand. Fender, obviously, probably the biggest guitar brand in the world. I don't think you can really go wrong with a Fender, especially for a first guitar. And to be honest, like, you're probably gonna buy a couple of guitars anyways. Like, if you figure out that this is something you're really into, I mean, I have just around me, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 7 guitars, and that's not all the guitars I have. I have a couple more in Stuttgart with my parents. If you're excited about playing an instrument, you're gonna buy a couple more because you're gonna realize that one guitar doesn't fit all. I have a guitar, so this is my guitar for jazz. This is my guitar for rock and metal. This is my guitar for classical work. This is my guitar for fingerstyle. This is my guitar for lower stuff. I have a guitar for everything, just because I figured like it just makes sense. You're not gonna go to a race in a oh, what's a slow car? Man, I don't know. I have no idea about cars. It's not my thing. A VW bus or something like that. I don't know. Volkswagen. So, every guitar has its purpose. And a Fender is a great first guitar because it's a pretty good all-arounder. It's not going to be the last guitar you buy, so don't worry about it too much, I would say. IK says, where can I listen to your music? Just go on YouTube, type in 41 styles in under 7 minutes. That's me. Moreno Wanza says, are there any artist biographies you recommend we read? I don't actually like reading biographies. I find those painfully boring. I know a lot of people love them. I've personally never found any connection with artist biographies, so I'm really not the guy to ask. The closest thing to a biography that I read that I've really enjoyed wasn't actually by a musician, or he actually is a musician, but it's not about music, was Derek Sivers' book, Anything You Want. That book, I reread that every couple of years, just because I love it so much. It's a very, very thin book. You can read it in maybe an hour or so. It's the one with the kid that is dug up all the way, he's dug up in sand to his neck. That's on the cover. There's no actual book title on the cover. And I really, really love that book. That's the closest thing to biography I think I've read and read again. Anything else? No, not really. No, not even for my favorite bands I would be interested in reading a biography. I just never thought that was much. That was, the thing is, I'm not so interested in the lives of people as I am in how they translated into music. And so for example, I really enjoyed the Amy Winehouse film because it really, is the wrong word since it was such a horrible, sad story. But it was super interesting seeing how she transformed what happened in her life into music and into lyrics. So that I thought was really quite fascinating. There's a couple of music films that I really like that are kind of biographical in parts. And I have made an entire list on this on the main YouTube channel. I think it's a podcast called My 10 Favorite Music Movies or something like that. So you can check that out if you're interested in that. But for books, I'm just very bored by bios usually. It's a good question though. Arct550 says, thanks for answering. I appreciate that. For sure, man. Martin says, you could make live streams discussion rounds where you analyze voted artists similar to the artist series on the main channel, but trimmed and as discussions for your Patreons. See, that's something I could maybe do. That's not a bad idea. I think live streams is something I could do. I could do another hour every week, doing another live stream just for the Patreons. That's something I think I could do. Maybe I could even make this here just for the Patreons. Since that's kind of what's happening anyways, I think most of you listening every single week are here, are hardcore fans anyway, and I think you wouldn't mind sending over maybe $1 or so every week or every month. I think so, hopefully, right? Because I think hopefully this is worth $1 a month. So maybe that's not a bad idea. Maybe I could just move this live Q&A to Patreon, and secondly, add another live Q&A or another live discussion round where we talk about artists or stuff like that, or maybe talk about songs. Maybe we could even do a live Q&A where people get to send in songs and I give quick feedback to them. Maybe that's not a bad idea either. Maybe we could do that as a 2-hour thing where maybe the first 10 people that send in stuff, there's something there. There's something there. So I could do 2 more hours a week. I could do that for a Patreon account where maybe people get to send in their songs, and I pick just the first come first serve. Whoever sends in the first song gets analyzed or something like that. There's something there. If you haven't, keep thinking about this and send me some more comments. Maybe we can figure something out together. All right. Mobius Drummer says, what is your favorite progressive rock band? Oh, that's a really good question. I mean, I really like Tool. That's why I did the artist series on them. I really like Nothing Phase. Element 80, I think, are great. Deftones, obviously, it's my favorite band, and I would still call them progressive, kind of. Although their later stuff hasn't been so progressive anymore. I recently heard a band that kind of sounds like the Deftones. Sounds like Deftones. What were they called again? Because there was a pretty recent band that just started out. So, what was that again? Man, I'm not sure if I can find it now. But I thought they did a really, really great job. Vexes, so V-E-X-E-X. V-E-X-E-S. They're actually really, really great. They sound a lot like Deftones, but they sound like the Deftones I like most, which is the really progressive, weird, technical kind of Deftones sound. So I haven't listened to a ton of their stuff, but I listened to maybe 4 or 5 of their songs, and I was blown away by how great they sound. And to me, if Deftones keep going down the path that they're going down, which I like, and I'm still gonna keep buying their new albums, I think I'm just gonna switch over to Vexes just because I think they just so encapsulate that sound that I really love about the Deftones. From the 60s, 70s era. Okay, I didn't read your next comment. Next part. Man, King Crimson is always good, right? Beatmaster says, looking at your sweet synth behind you, when do we get a 9 Inch Nails artist series video? That might actually happen. I'm not sure when that's going to happen, since right now we're in a sort of a rock season, and we still have a couple more episodes to go there. I think it's 3 more episodes, and I've already said that the next one is going to be System of a Down, and the next 2 are already kind of set. I'm getting a lot of comments for 2 particular bands for the last 2, but maybe next season we can do something more electronic, or maybe indie, and then I think 9 Inch Nails would fit into that really well. Art550 says, don't you think something like Feedback Friday would take off now if you'd put it on holistic songwriting, considering you're following on that channel? That's one option. That's one thing. That's one way it could go, or it could really ruin the main channel. So that's what I'm worried about, because I think, yes, if you do that once, it's going to be a big success. But I used to do that as a weekly show, and it just got less and less and less. And excitement for that show just really wanes off very quickly. I maybe could do it in a way where I do it every month instead of doing it every week, and maybe that still keeps it exciting. But the thing was that I thought it was going to be was that people get really excited about hearing other people's songs and trying to figure out what they could do better. But what actually started happening is that people said, oh, it's not my song, so why should I care? Why do I need to hear feedback on a song that's not mine? And that's what actually happened, and that's what really made it not so much fun. So there's a good point. You're making good points. So maybe it's something I should try out again. Maybe it's not completely dead, this idea. Maybe I should give it some more thought. All right. You really do look like Benny Greb, says Mobius Drummer. Do I? Actually, Benny was someone who I tried to contact and who I really wanted to work with for the Drum Writing for Non-Drummers series. Unfortunately, that didn't work out. But Benny's also German, and I watched his... I watched a lot of drummer courses back then, had a Drumeo account, and obviously watched all of Benny Greb's stuff. And he makes such amazing DVDs on drumming. It's really, really fantastic. And I took a lot from those lessons, and I really would have liked to work with him for the drum writing masterclass. Fortunately, that didn't work out, but I found another really great drummer that I could work with. So, all worked out well in the end. But man, Benny is fantastic, and he's a great teacher. Kai says, I second the motion. 9 Inch Nails, please. Yes, that's definitely going to happen. The question is just when rather than if. Kai says, can people pay you to mix their songs? Who do you use for mastering? Why don't you master yourself? I don't master myself because I think that once I'm done with the mix, first of all, I'm usually just sick and tired of hearing the song. I just really don't want to listen to that anymore. I get really, after a while, you get really excited about a song, right? You mix it, and then you get the first wave of feedback, and you're like, okay, cool, let's do it. And then you're kind of annoyed, and then you go through it again, and you get the second wave of feedback, and that crushes you, and it's your baby, and it's horrible. And then you do it again, and then slowly people are saying less and less negative things about your song, and you're like, oh, cool, this is getting really well. And then you have the final thing, and then you just heard it so much that it's impossible to stay objective about it anymore. And that's the point when I just really want to send it off to someone else. So that's why I don't master my own stuff. Also, I'm not a great masterer. It's a really complicated procedure, way more difficult than mixing. So I don't feel proficient enough to do something like that. And I use different people for my mastering. I've even used stuff like, what's that called? Lander, right? Yeah, it's Landr, so without the E. It's kind of like Fiverr, but without the E. It's where it's leaving out the E. So that's like a software for mastering that works fairly well, and it's not so expensive. So that's been pretty good. I have a guy in Berlin that does some of my mastering, and it's just different people for different jobs. If I have a R&B record, it's going to be someone else than if I have a record that's the next Children of Bodom kind of thing. So yeah. And what else? Can people pay you to mix their songs? I'm not really a great mixer, so I wouldn't suggest you hire me as a mixer. If anything, hire me as a songwriter. But please, as a mixer, there's certainly better people for your money. So that's all I'm saying. I'm not terrible at it, but I mean, the thing is, my main job is I'm a songwriter. I'm a songwriter who taught himself how to produce songs as well, because that's important, and I can do it, and I can produce some great sounding demos, but it just takes me a lot of time, and there's other people who do it way quicker, who have a way better procedure than me. So I would say go with one of those people. It's a shame that Feedback Friday didn't work out, because that series, even more than the artist series, is how I became a devoted student of yours. Super nice to hear that. Thanks, Kai. Marina says, I know you just came from vacation. You're a human being. Everyone needs a break. However, the continuation of the production course, you're a hot dude. Okay. Yes, it's going to happen. The production course, I've already made 3 or 4 videos. They're all like almost 20 minutes long. So there's another hour coming for sure. That's already done. It's just not everything that I wanted to make for the second update. Maybe I'm just going to make continuous updates instead of having one big update every month or so. But I'm sure there's going to come out a couple, there's definitely more videos coming out than just those 3. Kai says, speaking of the final episodes for this season of the artist series, any update on if we're going to get Bryan Adams? Probably not. Bryan Adams is probably not going to happen. Maybe in the future. Maybe I am going to do a classic rock season at some point. Maybe that's going to happen. The thing with the classic rock bands is that they have such, if you go with someone like Bon Jovi or ABBA or these huge bands, or the Beatles, obviously, it's so difficult to turn that into a 15-minute episode. I'm really struggling right now to put to condense a band like I don't know, Deftones or Tool into 12 minutes is an extremely difficult job, and I have to edit myself very, very, oh man, what's the word? Jesus. Jet lag. Okay. Rigorously. That's the word that I was looking for. So that's what makes things tough. And then if you have a band like the Beatles, who have essentially invented pop music and have made, more music than any one of us could ever imagine making, that is an impossible job to do. That you could turn that into a 10-part series, and I could still, turn that into a whole year of stuff, because there's just so much. You could turn almost every single song of theirs into an episode by itself. All right. So in Brad Adams, it's kind of the same thing, because he's done so many different things, and he's a really, really great writer who's just done a lot. He's so many sides to him, and every single record of his really sounded different. I think like he really explored a couple of different sounds throughout his career, and it would be difficult. I mean, Radiohead have as well, but yeah, it's those big bands that kind of terrify me to do an episode about, just because it would be so much work to do the research for it. Kai says, I've checked out Lander. So far, it just sounds like louder. Yeah, it's not bad. Mobius says, I was always wondering, your videos on main channel are really cool, but is there any podcast or anything that strictly goes behind the scenes during the songwriting process, if that makes sense? No, not for me. But with the hit song Architect, that's something that I'm trying to do with that. I haven't continued that series for almost 2 months now, unfortunately, just because the next episode is going to be a bigger one. But it's something I'm working on next, and I'm excited about that one. Hit song Architect is probably going to be the closest one to that. And there's also a program on my website called the 7-Day Hit Song Program, which I'm not sure if you've checked it out. It's one of my oldest programs, and it sounds kind of wonky. The sound quality of it is horrible, and I'm kind of ashamed by it, but the stuff in it is pretty good. So that's something that's probably the closest answer to what you're looking for. It's only $7 as well. When artists write their songs, it always fascinates me how they get to the finished product and their thought process behind the creation of the song. Yeah, absolutely. Thing is, it's just always different with every song, and that's my biggest question in life. That's always what I've been interested in with everything that I'm doing with holistic songwriting, and decades before that, I've always been fascinated by how people create something. Now, there's two things I think that are important if you're trying to learn how to do that. First of all is to do it a lot yourself, obviously, and you're going to figure out your own path of doing things. And I think especially in an artistic environment like music is, it's especially important to do things your own way and to not look left and right too much, because doing things your own way is going to create your own sound, and that's essentially how you're going to find your sound. If you do too much looking around, if you try to copy other people too much in terms of their approach, then you're going to sound more like those people, and we have a lot of people that sound alike already, so we don't need any more of that. For example, if you're looking into film music, for example, most tutorials online you're going to find on stuff like how to sound like Hans Zimmer, how to write the biggest fucking orchestra sounds that you could possibly imagine. And so if you go on library sites on the internet where people sell their music, their orchestral music, it's all Hans Zimmer stuff. It's all way over the top, huge action cues, and you find way less smaller cues, way less cute, small, beautiful melodies and harmonies. That kind of stuff is way underrepresented in that community, and that's because for that there's not really any teachers out there that really teach you how to do that. So that's why I think it's extremely important to just focus on yourself and to keep doing your own thing and to develop your own approach, because that is going to turn into your own style. That was point number one. And point number two was, if you're looking at other people, how they write their music, then don't listen to what they're saying, watch what they're doing. That's something that I've been doing for a really long time. Whenever I'm trying to learn a new skill, I mean, obviously I do listen to what they're saying, but way more important than that is watching their body language, think about how they say what they say, not just what they say. Because in the course, for example, I learned this through card magic, actually. It's one thing of learning the trick. It's one thing of learning the mechanics of it. But what's really important is watching the performer perform it for a live audience, and you see that's how the trick is actually performed. The mechanics are so not important, actually. What's really important is the performance of it. And that's the same in music as well, It's really not about setting your compressor to minus 10 dB, like the threshold. that's not important. Who cares about whether the threshold is at minus 10 dB or plus 4 decibel? Like, nobody cares about that. What's important is, what's the intention behind it? Why is that guy putting on that compressor? Like, what's he thinking as he's putting it on? And sometimes you can read that from body language. Sometimes he says something like, I don't know, it's not dancey enough. Can we make that dancier, or something like, can we make it bouncier? And then he puts on a compressor. Don't think about like, okay, how does he set the compressor? What you should be thinking about is, how is he trying to solve this problem that his track is not bouncy enough? Okay, he's using a compressor. Now, how is he setting up that compressor so that it ties together with this idea of making the track bouncier? That's how you should be thinking. Always trying to think in like, what's going on in his mind rather than what is he trying to teach me, So that's kind of next level stuff, and it requires you also already understand how to set a compressor and to do all of those things, which is what I have a course for, obviously, the production course. But really the next step is to try to get behind what the person is doing. Try to understand why they're doing it. Okay, that was a lot of talking. Kai says, perhaps some episodes could focus on an artist's most famous song. So Bryan Adams, Everything I Do, instead of his entire discography. It's maybe not a bad idea. Although for that, I would probably use more modern songs then, unfortunately. But it's not a bad idea to do single songs, especially like big singles right now. Because I always have to a little bit have to look out for, picking songs that the subscribers want to hear, and typically YouTube prefers if you do something that's a little bit more recent. And I'm just a little bit worried about my YouTube rating every now and then, and so I don't want to do something that is like just super tailored to a very niche audience. So I'm trying to at least address some bands that are kind of popular right now. But the idea is not bad of doing single songs. And I've actually done that every once in a while for other channels, to do like a single song analysis. Namely, I did reviews. It's more reviews, I guess, for Shut Up and Dance by Walk the Moon. I did that together with the Pop Song Professor on his channel. And also I did... That was more of an analysis, a real-time analysis. So the song was playing in the background and I talk over it. And the other one was for the latest 21 Pilots songs, Jumpsuit, and what was the other one? Forgot the name of the other one. I did a review for those two on his channel just recently as well. Okay, but it's not a bad idea to do single songs as well. I've thought about that for a while, but it's just the question now. If you do a single song, that's going to get old very quickly. If you do an artist, that artist might release a new record, and it's still relevant then. If you do a song, like, who cares about what, I don't know, someone did, like one of the big stars, like what Taylor Swift released last year or 5 years ago. Nobody cares a single that she released 5 years ago, but people still do care about Taylor Swift. If she releases something new, people are still going to come back to that video, how Taylor Swift writes a song or how Taylor Swift writes a melody. So that's kind of my thinking behind that. And maybe doing like the real greats of the music industry ever, like the greatest songs ever analyzed, that might be maybe even a better idea. And that maybe goes into more what you're saying, of picking like the most famous songs from certain artists and analyzing those. But at the same time, I'm thinking so many people are already doing that, and kind of what I wanted to do with holistic songwriting is really stay current and really do what's happening now as opposed to what happened 50 years ago. Because a lot of people like to dwell on older artists, and that's great. If that's your thing, that's perfect. And I like older artists a lot more than new artists as well, with some exceptions. But still, we have to keep moving forward. And I really want to focus on what's happening now instead of what was happening 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years ago sometimes. So, yeah, it's a difficult balance to strike here, I think. Okay, Beatmaster says, another Patreon thing could be to let Patreons vote on an artist for one video in the artist series. Do one for each season. Oh, that's not a bad idea. Just do one episode. See, that's actually a really good idea. Yeah, we could totally do that. Martin says, I'm very excited for the System of a Down episode because I listened to them a long time ago, and they are the first band artist I really knew before the video since the Sia episode. Cool. Nice, man. Good to hear that. Yeah, I was a really big fan of System of a Down as well. I must say, when I was a teenager and Mesmerized Hypnotized came out, that kind of threw me off a little bit. And I first loved Mesmerize, like I really fell in love with it. But after like I think a month listening to it, it kind of wore off, and I didn't love it as much. And then when Hypnotize came out, I really didn't like that one. Especially there was one song, something America or something. What was it? Or Waterfall. I forgot what it's called. Life is a waterfall. I forgot what that song was called. But anyways, like I really liked the live version of that song, and then I heard the recorded version of it, and I really didn't like it. But I was a huge fan before that. Like Toxicity, Steal This Album were like some of my favorite albums, and obviously the self-titled one when I was a teenager. So I would listen to those albums a lot. So I'm excited about that episode as well. I'm looking forward to making it. Joshua says, in Addiction Formula, you say that starting a song big and then going back is really hard to do, but do you have any suggestions, and or could you make a video about it? Right, sure. I mean, there's a couple of things that you can do. The core thing is obviously you want to have contrast between whatever happens before the chorus and what happens in your chorus, right? And so whichever way you do that, that needs to happen somehow. So what a lot of bands do that want to start big is they'll have a really big intro. I'm thinking of something like Diary of Jane by Breaking Benjamin, for example, right? That I think is a really well-written song that has a really huge killer intro, right? Really big sort of rock intro. So, I mean, it starts off really very quiet, then we have the huge bang, really cool riff, and then it goes into the verse where the energy goes back down by quite a bit. And then the energy goes back up in the pre-chorus, and then it goes up even further in the chorus. So that's kind of how they build it. So instead of just starting small and then slowly building, they have a big peak at the beginning, and then they go down, and then they follow that formula. Another way to do it would be to do something like Can't Believe by Stained, which is pretty much big all the way through. And how they manage it is just fantastic. I think it's one of my favorite examples for like having a high energy song that is high energy throughout the entire thing, is that their verses are just super tense and disgusting. And so there's like screaming, and there's so much tension in the verses, and in the chorus, the only difference that it really brings in, the contrast that comes in, is just that everything resolves, and that there's singing, and it's just pretty, and it's dark, and it's beautiful, and that's the big contrast that brings. So that's one way of doing it. And I really love that. Like, if you want to have a high energy song that is high energy from start to finish, then working with tension is a really great way of doing it. I did that actually for a song called Where Is Your Heart, which you can find on SoundCloud. Where Is Your Heart? I think you would just have to search for Freedom of It as in that title, and you'd probably find it. That's also like the whole composition of that is verses are super tense and very high energy. Chorus is very high energy, but has a different, like a lesser kind of tension. So that's one way of doing it. And another way to do it would be to just have a pre-chorus that is very low energy, right? So let me think about, and another way again would be to do what System of a Down did in Chop Suey, which is having really high energy verses, really high energy intro, etc., and then the chorus is the low energy part. That's also totally possible. So I mean, there's so many ways to do it. The contrast is the important thing. Like, how are you going to contrast it against each other? And it's also possible to just have a song that's just all high energy, as long as you understand how to work with that and how to make that interesting and how to keep that engaging throughout the entire song. Beatmaster is he thinking about Rick Beato? I mean, I love Rick. I love his channel. I think it's super interesting, and I learn something from it every time I watch it. But yes, one of the things that I just want to do different than he does, and I think he's doing it so well. So I'm not criticizing or judging here at all, but really what I want to do different than his channel, because I think his channel is the best at doing that kind of stuff, as analyzing the great songs of of pop music, of pop history, so to say. He's the best at doing that, and so I'm not even going to try to compete. What I want to do is my focus is just going to be on more recent stuff. So that's how I'm going to separate myself from him, and I have to think about my own image as well a little bit as well, So so yes, I am thinking of Rick Beato and a lot of other writers as well, a lot of other YouTubers as well. Kai says, even if other people are sort of doing the same thing, your perspective is unique and valuable, and I for one resonate with your voice in a way I don't with other songwriting teachers. That's really kind to say. That's really kind to say. I still think, yeah, I don't know. I would have to think about that. It's not completely out of the question. Maybe it's something I could do just for Patreons. Because there is some interesting stuff to learn from those songs as well, for sure. I just always wonder, like, how relevant is it right now? Because I think moving forward is the most important thing as songwriters. Like, it's so easy to get caught up in the past and try to write songs like, from the 70s or 80s, when really no one's looking for those songs anymore. And since holistic songwriting is a commercial platform first and foremost, I want to teach people how to write songs for tomorrow and not the songs of yesterday. That's kind of where why I'm struggling with that. But I understand your point, and there's a little bit of a dichotomy between what I want for the channel and what a lot of people want for the channel. I want this to be a really professional channel for the future, and a lot of people just want to hear about their favorite songs and want me to hear them analyzed. And sometimes you have to make a call and say, like, no, I'm just gonna go with my way because I think this is the right way to do it. And I'm not sure. Right now, I'm leaning towards that side, but it still could go either way. I'm not saying that's the only thing I'm going to do for all eternity, but, right now I'm kind of seeing myself, next generation pop music. What will that sound like? And that's why I'm trying to analyze what's happening now in the charts. Because ultimately, I mean, the channel is here for, oh man, we're running out of time, aren't we? The channel is here for creating music. It's not about analyzing music. The analyzing part I'm just doing to help you understand how to write music better. That's kind of what I'm interested in. So, difficult. I have to think about it, really. Mobius says, are you into hip-hop at all? I thought Denzel Curry's music video for The Cloud Cobain was really cool. I haven't heard that one yet. I have to check it out. Yes, I do like hip-hop. I'm not very good at writing it, but I really do like it. I really do. I love a lot of hip-hop. Clement says, hey Clement. Marina Mwanza says, Nectar 3 is awesome. Purchase it. You should keep reviewing cool plugins and products like so. Yeah, Nectar 3 is really cool. I have Nectar as well. I actually have Nectar 2, which is a bummer because I bought it like a month before Nectar 3 came out, and I really dig it, especially for the harmonizing function. Man, I'm totally crazy about that. Clayman says, question, how can I make a production sound full without overproducing? Sorry if this isn't the topic, I just came in. No, it's fine. That's kind of how we do it on this live Q&A anyways. We're just jumping from question to question. Unfortunately, we're kind of running out of time, so I'm just going to go really quickly through these. Clayman, I would love to hear back from you next week, because we're doing this every week at 9 a.m. PST. So, all right, but how can you make a production sound full without overproducing? The trick is making each sound full on its own and really thinking about your arrangement. So what you're talking about is maybe like a really great pop song, something like, say, Fancy by Iggy Azalea. I consider a really great production because it has so little elements, but it sounds full and it just sounds fantastic in my book. I mean, it sounds very empty, but it sounds great, It's a very sparse arrangement, but it does its job extremely well. And the way it does it, I think, is that every single sound is chosen very carefully. They all interact in fantastic ways. Like every instrument has its own frequency spectrum, and that's the frequency spectrum it's going to fill. There's never any overlap, so nothing is wasted. There are very deliberate choices made for every single instrument, and that's what makes that arrangement work so well. So it's two parts, really. Make sure you understand which parts of your arrangement still need filling up. And if you realize, oh, you know what, for my low mids, there's nothing there, maybe I should find an instrument that kind of can cover that frequency spectrum, but not much else, right? And then the next thing is to make all of those sounds sound fantastic. That's really kind of what it comes down to. And the production part really goes into the direction of saying, like, how can I make this sound better? How can I make this sound nicer, more interesting? So you're thinking more about designing each sound instead of saying, like, how can I add more onto that? How can I make the whole song sound better? You're really focusing in more on the sounds. Okay, let's see. Kai says, yeah, bro, do it for Patreon. I would absolutely pay for this stuff. It's not so much that I want to hear old stuff, but rather songs that have stood the test of time and become timeless. Yeah, that's a good point. It's a good point. Even though I think, would they still become timeless classics today, or is that still is that just a nostalgia thing? Because I'm sure 100 years ago, people talked about pieces of music as well and said like those pieces are going to be timeless. And well, I mean, we're still listening to Beethoven's Fifth, so I don't know. It's difficult to tell. It's not a bad idea, and maybe I'm going to do it. So Patreon is not off the table, and maybe that would be a cool thing to do with that. Nizar Al-Zayn says, what is the best way of supporting you? I want to buy your book. Most of the money will go to Amazon, so how can we support you the max so you make more of these videos? That's so kind of you to say, man. Nizar, it's like the nicest thing you could say, man. I really, really appreciate that. And I really have to think about it. I think Patreon would probably be a really great way to go down, because a lot of you have been asking about this, and like when are you gonna go on Patreon? How can we support you? Maybe I should like just have a PayPal donate button or something like that. But I think the best way right now would be to is to buy one of my courses, like one of the video courses, I guess. That's like right now. If you want to support me, that's the best way to do it. Or you can just, yeah. I'm kind of speechless because this is so nice of you to say something like that. I really, thanks, man. Really appreciate that. Yeah, I'll let you know. I think PayPal. I'm probably gonna make a Patreon account. Yeah, I think that's what it's gonna come down to. Martin says, I know analyzing hip-hop is not your strength. You explained it before, but some hip-hop content would be great in the future, maybe on Patreon. I would really appreciate it. Many others as well, I guess. And maybe that is something that we could tie into Patreon. Maybe that is something where people could suggest songs. Maybe I could do like a weekly thing. I'm just brainstorming here, but maybe I could do a weekly thing where people send in songs that are not written by them, but like popular songs right now, and say like, hey, listen to this, what do you think of this, how did they do that, or what is your thinking on this technique or whatever. So yeah, I'm not sure if that's possible with copywriting and all, but it's certainly something I would like to check out. Mobius says, thanks, have a good week. Beatmaster says, nostalgia is hell of a drug. It certainly is. Clement says, could you do some songwriting sessions filmed as you did with movie titles? I love the way you write. Could you do some songwriting sessions filmed as you did with movie titles? Songwriting sessions filmed. I don't quite understand what you mean. With movie titles? I love the way we write. Oh, right. Oh, you're talking about the hit song Architect. Sure, yes. I will. That's a series that's going to continue hopefully this month. Worst case scenario next month. But it's certainly something that will happen. Yes. Cool. All right, man. Everyone, thanks so much for watching and listening to me garble on about stuff for way too long. It's, again, my biggest excuse is I'm jet lagged, and that's probably even 50% true. The rest of it is just that I'm just a doofus, and trying to do this live isn't always easy. So, everyone, yes, Speedmaster, you said it perfectly. Stay gefährlich and cool. Take care, everyone. Thanks.